All right, we are on. So, with that out of the way, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to Burnin Rubber, the socially distanced edition for tonight, May 29th, 2020. My name is Sterling Siemens. I'm joined by my co-hosts, as usual, Hal Leestep and Justin Palmer. Fellas, well, Memorial Day weekend came and went. The greatest day in motorsports. Only had one race, but, I mean, it was still a good weekend, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining. I'm pretty sure some people would say the Coke 600 left something to be desired, but I thought it was a fine race. I mean, you can't expect the greatest race right now.
Yeah, Justin?
Yeah, again, nothing to complain about. Oh, we still have racing going, even though Mother Nature is being a pain in the butt at the moment. And luckily, no rain for Sunday or Monday, knock on wood, for Bristol. Oh, and we should have some clean racing for once.
Hopefully, fingers crossed that's the case. I literally had to knock on wood because the desk I've got is made of wood. But
Same here.
but yeah, as you can tell in the background behind me is a shot of Kansas Speedway. Had the schedule not been altered or been affected in any way, this would have been the Kansas Speedway weekend. So single tier. However, I won't spoil it now, but there is some news later on in the show that we'll get to that involves this beauty of a track behind me, my home track, Kansas Speedway. Anyway, let's get on with the show, shall we? We will start with recapping all of the races at Charlotte. So the Coca-Cola 600 came and went. A lot of fans out there thought, well, this is kind of a boring race. And there were some aspects to it that were kind of boring. For example, there seemed to be a lack of passing going on. However, in the end, I do want to call out Justin on this because, Justin, your picks this week were pretty spot on. Brad Keselowski ended up winning the Coca-Cola 600. He ran up front really for most of the night, but I will say this race seemed to be Chase Elliott's to lose. He was up front and had a pretty good-sized gap on second place at the time, which was Keselowski now that I think about it. Jimmy Johnson had been running in third. And then William Byron, his teammate, cuts a tire and brings out the caution with 2 laps to go. And for some reason, Alan Gustafson made the call to bring Chase Elliott down pit road. Oh boy, the Elliott fan base was livid after that. Elliott rallied back to finish. He crossed the line in third. Jimmy Johnson initially crossed the line in second behind Brad Keselowski. However, his car failed post-race inspection, so he was noped out of his second-place finish and disqualified from the event, so Elliott is classified in second. There were a lot of guys that had problems. Denny Hamlin had a tungsten weight ballast fall off his car when he pulled off of pit road for the parade laps. Now, I know a tungsten weight ballast doesn't sound like it's the most severe thing, but there is one image that I do want to show that illustrates just how dangerous it can be. And I'm going to share the screen on this real quick. Pardon my cat scratching at the door. So yeah, this is Jamie Dick's car when he was still competing in NASCAR during an Xfinity Series practice session at Bristol a few years ago. The windshield was where he hit the tungsten ballast. It went through the windshield, scraped off his helmet, along with the driver's side window area. That's how heavy the tungsten ballast is, and that's how dangerous it can be. So Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Chris Gabehart, his car chief, Brandon Griffith, and his engineer, Scott Simmons, have been suspended. This was after the Coke 600 for the next 4 Cup Series points events through June 10th. So all of that happened, but Brad Keselowski in what is suspected to be the last race for Miller Lite on the car, it's the only race they're scheduled to be on for this year, gets a Coke 600 win, and Brad crosses off another crown jewel event. I'll start with Justin just because he got the picks so nailed on. We'll get into more of those later in this segment. But Brad Keselowski, a Coke 600 win. What is this? What does this do for his future in NASCAR for next year, perhaps?
I don't think it really changes much in terms of next year, other than and the potential for Miller Lite to maybe reconsider or the opportunities. However, I would say that the race was definitely interesting, to say the least. Good amount of comers and goers throughout the race, as you would expect over a 600-mile event. But it did not feel good to get this one right. I will say that Chase Elliott had this race won. And I honestly don't blame Alan Gustafson for the call, because this is a situation where if you are the leader with 2 laps to go when the caution comes out, you are screwed if you come in, and you are screwed if you stay out. Because if you come in, everybody's taking 4. If you stay out, if you come in, everybody's staying out. If you don't come in, everybody's taking 4 behind you. So there was no really winning in that situation for Chase Elliott. I think the last driver I have seen kind of come out on top in a situation like that was Tony Stewart back in 2012 at Fontana. And even then, the race wasn't over, because they stopped for rain and everybody came in, and Tony juked everybody out by not coming in. And I think that was the last time I've seen someone win in that scenario from the lead.
Yeah,
So,
it also makes you think of Justin Haley's win last year when Kurt Busch came down pit road.
But Justin Haley wasn't the leader at the time.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Justin Haley was way back in the field. Kurt Busch was the leader at the time, and he decided to come in, and that's how you get Justin Haley as the winner of the race. But it's just a bad situation for Alan Gustafson, and I know he cost Jeff Gordon a couple of races back when he was the crew chief for Gordon, but he's gotten better over the past couple of years. This has been his first mistake in, I would say, about 3 years. There's where it really cost Elliott the victory. So I feel bad for Gustafson in that situation, but it's screwed if you do, screwed if you don't.
Yeah. Hal, your overall thoughts on the Coke 600?
I'd say that the one thing that became apparent was that many fans were dissatisfied with this package during the race, because there wasn't much passing, which is what everybody wants to see. And I think it was still a fine race. It is the Coke 600. It had a different winner. It didn't have someone that you're going, oh, him again. You had Brad Keselowski go get his first win in a while in a contract year in the only race this season with Miller. And that's a good story. Of course, it was overshadowed because if Chase Elliott's involved in the finish in any way, it's going to be overshadowed by whatever he was involved in. We just saw it last week in Darlington. Chase Elliott's entire ordeal, you're right. It's a screwed if you do, screwed if you don't situation. And I don't think – the thing that you have to keep in mind is when Chase Elliott went down pit road, made a stop, and came back out, he fought his way all the way back up to third. So obviously the call, I think, was right because in those situations you kind of bet there might be another caution because everyone's going for it. So I think if there was another caution, Chase Elliott wins that race. So I can't say that they made a bad call. I think it was one of those calls where you're right. Whatever you do, it's going to look bad if you don't win. And he didn't win. So that's really all you can say on Chase Elliott's end. And all I got to say is that I was really pulling for my pick, Jimmy Johnson, to go get that win. And then he goes and makes me look like a fool by failing the post-race inspection. That hurts.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because Jimmy he was solid all night long. I mean, he was up there battling pretty much throughout the race. And then
he was one of the few cars that actually stuck throughout day and night, day, night, and rain.
Yeah, I mean, he was up there the entire time. Qualified on the outside of the front row, finished second. or at least crossed the line there, and then he got disqualified. So tough luck for Jimmy there. Alex Bowman actually led the most laps on the night at 164, but his car faded back in the late stages. And as for getting down to the end of the race, Chase Elliott, yeah, he had this race won. It was clear that he had one of the best, if not the best cars, if not the best, near the end, getting down to the late stages. But when William Byron blew that tire, looking back on it now, in the end, though, I'm not really surprised, because if you were watching the last few restarts, you could see smoke billowing from Byron's car near where that tire was rubbing. Why they didn't bring it into the pits to change the tire, I really don't know. But in the end, it killed Chase Elliott's momentum. And then the call to bring Elliott down pit road, which, I mean, I can understand why if you think fresher tires are the way to go, but based on what I saw with both the Coke 600 and then last night's Alsco 500, I mean, clean air was king. If you were out front and could get out front with clean air, you were pretty much set for a while. I mean, speak with my pick, Martin Truex Jr. He led 87 laps on the night, and that was mainly due to being out front in clean air. And we saw other guys, even last night's event, where Matt DiBenedetto was able to hang with other guys up near the front because of that clean air. So when you factor that in, I don't necessarily agree with Alan Gustafson's decision to bring Chase Elliott down pit road, but then again, I'm not the one on top of the box making the calls. So
and you also have to keep in mind Alex Bowman in the Coca-Cola 600, and the way he got out front was as either last night, I forget which one, but one of the times Alex Bowman got out in front was because he didn't decide to come down and onto pit road. And he got like a 20-lap run there, and he won a couple of stages. As Bowman had a very good week in terms of stages, as he just couldn't finish it this week, unfortunately. And if you're Hendrick, this was definitely a disappointing race, considering the fact that all four of the cars did not finish where they should have, with Johnson probably in third, or with actually passing, and Bowman and Byron in the top 10 and Chase as your winner. Or instead, you have a disqualified car, 2 cars outside the top 20, and a very disappointed driver on a pit call.
Right.
But you also have to look at the positives. Hendrick did very well.
Yeah.
Hendrick did very well this week. And I'm very interested to see if they could continue that forward, but it's a very good sign for Hendrick.
It is a good sign for Hendrick moving forward. Alex Bowman won the first 2 stages of the Coke 600 and won a stage during last night's Alsco 500. However, he did have misfortune in both events, so tough not getting the result that he probably deserved, considering how fast his car was through both races. Before we carry on too long, I do want to talk about the other races that happened. The Xfinity Alsco 300, which happened on Monday night. Kyle Busch came into the race and won. So, Justin, that's another pick for you that you got right. He held off Daniel Hemrick and Austin Cindric for the race win. Ross Chastain started on the pole and led quite a few laps, which I do want to bring up, because Chastain, in the first few races, I think it was safe to say that we expected him to be a championship contender right out of the gate. But, I mean, the first few races this season, he's been practically anonymous. We hadn't really seen him competing for wins out there. He'd run in the top 5, top 10, but for a race win, we just hadn't seen him there, even up near the lead most of the time. I mean, he actually failed to qualify for Daytona. The only reason he got in there was because he bought a ride with Ryan Sieg's team, I believe it was, and got himself in the race there. But he led 68 laps on Monday night at Charlotte. That's the first great sign of he can actually compete. So for Chastain, that's great. But also, Austin Cindric really battled Kyle Busch hard for the win near the end. Kyle, he really had to earn it, but he finally broke through. He got around Austin Cindric going down the backstretch into turn 3. Daniel Hemrick finishes second with Cindric in third. There were also 11 cautions in the race. It basically became almost a race of survival near the end. But overall, Justin, I'll start with you again. Kyle Busch finally gets his first Xfinity win of the season after finishing third at Phoenix, second at Darlington. Career win number 97 for Kyle Busch in Xfinity competition. 3 wins away from what he says will be 100 wins, and he's out. So your thoughts overall on the Allsco 300?
Well, you brought up Ross Chastain, and unfortunately for Ross Chastain, Timmy Hill chose probably the worst possible time to have an issue that took both him and Chase Briscoe, because let's be honest, those 2 cars were, besides Kyle Busch, which Kyle Busch is excluded from this conversation and for obvious reasons, those were the 2 fastest cars all night. Hey, those 2 were probably the 2 guys I thought who could maybe stand a chance up to Kyle Busch. But once those 2 kind of got out, you knew, even with all the issues Kyle Busch had during the race, he went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth throughout this race. Not as much as he did in the next race, but we'll get to that in a bit. And Kyle Busch was just not going to be denied. And you kind of knew on that last restart, yeah, Kyle Busch is walking away with this thing. No offense to Daniel Hemrick. No offense to Austin Cindric. Cindric actually did a really good job. And I think he proved a lot of people wrong that he's not just a road course driver. That definitely helps his stocks going forward into potentially a cup ride in 2021. But Kyle wasn't going to be denied. Once Ross and Briscoe were out of this race, Ross did recover pretty well. He finished inside the top 10. But once those 2 were out, it was pretty much the Kyle Busch show from there on out.
Yep. Hallie, Steph, your take on the Xfinity race?
Well, it's good to see a young up-and-comer like Kyle Busch go out there and finally get that victory. I'm really excited to see what he does in the future. But I gotta say, the heartbreak of looking and seeing Daniel Hemrick once again not get a win. Daniel Hemrick can't buy a win in the Xfinity Series, can't buy a win in general. Seeing him finish in second, that hurts. That hurts for him. And the point on Ross Chastain, I gotta wonder for some of those races, was his head in the clouds of being in the 6 car, and he was focused on that instead of competing in the Xfinity Series. And now that he's back to focused, ready, and willing to go in Xfinity, that's his main goal. I think we're going to see him do much better now he's in a focused ride. He isn't worried about how he's going to compete tomorrow or compete next week in the Cup Series. It's going to be focus this week in Xfinity, next week in Xfinity. Go win that championship. That's the focus. Don't try to go impressing people in the Cup Series.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. Because, Chastain, he did run 3 races for Roush Fenway Racing in the Cup Series. He's run 5 overall, but just his best finish for Roush, his 3 finishes were 27th, 17th, and 23rd. But in terms of his Xfinity championship stats, let's see, he finished 22nd at Daytona, but he's got top 10 finishes in every other race since. Charlotte was his first top 5 finish of the year, and it was the first time that he showed any signs of, hey, he's a championship contender. He led 68 laps, so that works for Chastain. As for Hemrick, this is his best finish since returning to the Xfinity Series this year, and even though he's running a partial schedule, it still has to be a feel-good moment for Hemrick, because he talked in the post-race press conference on Zoom after the race that he basically had to change the way he was approaching these races, had to change his mindset on approaching these events with instead of having to go out and trying to go out and win every time, considering this is a new team that he's with. This is his first year with JR Motorsports, driving for Dale Jr. He had to adjust to working with the crew that he had. And they've been slowly clicking the results together. And Monday night was his best finish since coming back. Now, will this lead to a win eventually? That's the hope. I think a lot of people would be happy to see Daniel Hemrick get a win. I'm sure it'd be a very popular win. But it'll be interesting to see where his team goes from here. And on Austin Cindric, what can you say? I mean, he's really shown that he's improved incredibly in the Xfinity Series. I think we saw signs of this last year even, where his mile-and-a-half finishes and his results were getting much better in the latter half of the season. He had a third at Texas that was really showing that he could really run on these kinds of tracks and not just be a road course ace that he's proven to be in the past. He led 30 laps on Monday night and almost beat Kyle Busch for the win. It should be noted. He went toe-to-toe with Kyle, didn't prevail at the end, but hey, it's still interesting to challenge Kyle Busch like that in the way that Austin Cindric did.
I would also like to add here real quick, Daniel Hemrick is right outside the cutoff line for the Xfinity playoffs. So he's got one less start than everybody else.
Interesting. I don't know if that would count for, considering he's only run, I mean, he's missed one race, and he's not going to be running the full schedule. The plan is to have Hemrick run 21 races, and there were 33 scheduled in the Xfinity Series this year. I don't know if that's changed or not, but I'll have a look. There's 29 listed on Racing Reference. That could change though, so important to keep that in mind. But just to see these guys challenge Kyle, and yes, Kyle led the most laps in the race, but it shows the competition's growing in the Xfinity Series. It's getting tougher. I mean, we saw it last year with the big three, so
it's
good to see.
It's not 2008 through, I want to say 2014, when we had pretty much nobody coming up through the Xfinity Series. It's the era of Carl Edwards, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch winning every single race. That is now gone. Gone. I think we are finally seeing in kind of a new wave of drivers finally stand up to Kyle Busch, and that's what the sport needs, is these guys going toe-to-toe with Kyle Busch, because, I mean, we'll get to this in the truck conversation, but ratings are up whenever Kyle Busch shows up, ratings are up, and so far, Kyle Busch has had the best two races, I would argue, so far for the Xfinity Series this season. And these have been the best two races for the Xfinity Series this year, or Darlington and Charlotte.
Yeah, fans really loved the event on Monday night, for sure. And speaking of the truck race, that's the next event we're talking about. Tuesday night, the North Carolina Education Lottery 200 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Chase Elliott, after having really such a whirlwind week, dating back to Darlington on Wednesday night on that Wednesday night when he got turned by Kyle Busch down the front stretch and then gave him the number one salute. Chase Elliott, almost a week later, goes out and wins at Charlotte, the truck race there. And he also collects a $100,000 bounty that was placed on Kyle Busch, $50,000 from Kevin Harvick, another $50,000 from Marcus Lemonis, the CEO and chairman of Camping World, or at least I believe that's his position. But the $100,000 will be going to a charity to benefit COVID-19 relief. So applause for that. Hats off as well. But Justin, again, I'll save my thoughts on this to go around the horn on this. The overall thoughts and takes on the North Carolina Education Lottery 200.
First of all, I'm very happy that I got a broomstick this week for my efforts. I am very proud of getting 3 races in a row. Oh, and truth be told, I did not think that Chase Elliott was going to pull this off. I honestly thought this was going to be a Kyle Busch win. But as fate would have it, Chase Elliott got some very good luck coming from the Kyle Busch camp. Kyle was not at full strength throughout that race. But Chase Elliott, what a whirlwind of just an entire week. You've gone from probably a low to a very low to, kind of being back on top a little bit and gaining momentum. This was a huge win for Chase Elliott. And I don't think I'll be honest, I don't think he wins last night if he didn't win on Tuesday. Beating Kyle Busch in this bounty race. This race was just so much fun from beginning to end. Kyle Busch was making all of the moves possible. 3, 4, or even 5 wide, using that little bit of extra room where the chicane is on the Roval to make moves towards the end of the race. This was just a fun race to watch. A fan favorite one. And the heel is bad. And this was just a great race overall. And this is, I'll get to this as later, but this is why we should probably have a little bit more bounties is going on. Because whenever Kyle Busch shows up, because it worked in the ratings. The ratings were up significantly. 750,000 people tuned in, and most weeks it's only 300,000. So this was just a great race. So overall, it worked. This worked well. Oh, and I want to see more.
Yep. Hal, go ahead with your take.
Kyle Busch, how dare you choose this week to lose in a truck race? Are you kidding me? Come on, man. I had the one pick I felt like, you know what, I might get it right. And the guy goes out, whatever. Great win for Chase Elliott and his guys. We all knew that Chase Elliott, when he went down to the Truck Series, he had one goal in mind, and that's beat Kyle Busch. And as it turns out, when Chase Elliott puts his mind to something, you're not going to stop him. He went out there and proved that, he's the guy to go beat him in the Truck Series. And I still wish it was the truck regulars who were the ones that would get the reward for beating Kyle Busch, but it went to a good cause, so I can't complain there. That's great that he donated to COVID-19 relief. I got to say, great job by Chase Elliott, and man, I just want to see a truck regular challenge Kyle Busch, though. I really want to, because it has that little feeling of, while it was a great story for Chase Elliott this week with everything that's gone on, it feels a little empty that it's not somebody who's regularly going up against the invader known as Kyle Busch in the Truck Series. So, hats off to Chase Elliott, though.
Yeah, we're going to have to check and see if that Hallmar bounty from Stuart Friesen's sponsor is still active. But in all seriousness, though, it really was a good win for Chase Elliott, especially after the week that he had. From getting turned by Kyle Busch to beating Kyle Busch in that fashion. That's great for him. He even did a little bow that Kyle Busch does after the race, which, by the way, Chase Elliott, because of that, stone cold savage. That's basically what that move was. Kyle, he was not aware of that until the Zoom press conference afterward, which Kyle was like, "Oh, that's cute." It's the quote was, "That's cute." Imitation is the best form of flattery, so there's that. But concerning Kyle Busch, a lot of people, well, not a lot, but there were some people that I saw on Twitter particularly that were like, man, Kyle must have let Chase win this race. I'm like, no, that's not
No,
Kyle Busch's
no,
nature.
no.
That's definitely not Kyle's nature. And another thing is, during that race, I mean, I noticed that he started well back in the field. Like,
Because of the owner's points.
yeah, I mean, he started way back there anyway. But during his conversations with the media and interviews with them after the race, Kyle disclosed that there was, I believe, a front camber or front suspension piece that was either broken or bent that was really altering how the truck drove. He led 25 laps, which is still impressive if a truck is that hard to drive. But there was a reason why he would be like starting near the back and then coming toward the front. And then they had a pit stop and then he's at the back again. Then he comes back to the front. Then they have the next pit stop and he's at the back. And then he goes to the front. So he had tried. He really tried hard to get around Chase Elliott. And I mean, lap traffic, it's there. You just got to deal with it. And Kyle even said, I'll admit, I was in that press conference after the race, and I was fortunate enough to ask Kyle if lap traffic had anything to do with it, and he said no. It was, I mean, the truck was, quote, it was really hard to drive. So that's why that's why Kyle just didn't have anything for Chase near the end. Also, Kyle Busch's interview with Fox Sports didn't air after the race. That's because he dropped the F-bomb there. In the interview, it did not air on TV. A lot of people interpreted that as, oh, Kyle didn't want to talk again. Vintage Kyle being Kyle. He just doesn't want to talk. He whines and complains. No, that's not what happened. Let's get that clear. I mean, Kyle, obviously he's mad. And a lot of people who saw the interview thought, well, that's Kyle whining. I'm like, that's Kyle Busch, the owner, though. He owns that truck. And if you're an owner like Kyle Busch, you expect the best. When you show up to a track with a broken piece of equipment or a broken part on a truck after like 6 weeks off of racing, you'd be pretty ticked off too.
You had more time in this break than you did in the off season. You should be able to get a truck ready to go.
Yeah.
For this exact moment. You don't do that at Daytona. But you also see, the thing I do have to mention in that interview, you also saw Kyle Busch, the person. You saw Kyle Busch away from the racetrack because, again, and he also lost $50,000. That $50,000 had he beaten Chase Elliott, and now assuming that he would go out and win the next couple of races, I think it's 2 or 3 more that he's scheduled to do this season. Had he gone out and cleared the bounty, that would have gone to a charity very near and dear to his heart.
Yeah.
We talked about last week a Kyle Busch and Chase Briscoe. It would go to a charity that would directly relate to that. And so Kyle was very emotional at the race, and you cannot blame Kyle Busch for being emotional, not only as a driver, as a crew, as an owner, and also as a person.
Yeah.
And so I definitely cannot blame Kyle Busch for being frustrated. I thought he handled the interview actually decently well, considering all things, but this is not one you can blame on Kyle Busch.
I have to wonder, though, is Kyle really losing money from the bounty? I mean, it's Kevin Harvick who put the bounty up there, but I don't know if Kyle...
It would have gone to a charity near and dear to him. That's the thing.
Okay.
And that he's mad about.
Yeah, I mean, there's that too. But as for Kyle in his post-race interview, yeah, he owns the truck. If there's a broken part, he's not going to be happy about it. I mean, he'll let you know. I question fans, did you not see what happened to Harrison Burton and Todd Gilliland last year? They didn't perform. They're gone. I mean, Gilliland, he's driving for his dad's team now in the truck series through front row. And Harrison, I feel like the truck's never really suited his driving style anyway, because now he's in Xfinity and he's actually doing pretty well over there. But But yeah, Kyle expects near perfection. If perfection isn't the expectation, nearly up there. That's what he expects. He expects a challenge for championships. That didn't happen last year. So, yeah, obviously Kyle was a little upset after the race, and I find it incredible that I find it so amusing how fans and this doesn't just adhere to Kyle, but to a lot of drivers and all around the sport. How fans say they want to see more emotion, they want to see more drivers speaking their mind, and then Kyle speaks his mind, and people call him a whiner and complainer. I mean, that's an incredible double standard. The same double standard that applies for Cups guys going down to the Truck Series. Like people, they're out here complaining about Kyle Busch running in Xfinity or trucks, just out here for the fun of it. Like they treat Kyle winning a truck race as if it's the worst thing that's ever happened to mankind. But then when Chase Elliott wins a truck race, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So the double standard among the NASCAR fan base is real. I just want to get that off my chest. So I think we've gone on quite a bit for the truck race. I do want to get into the last event that happened, which, Justin, you're 3 for 3 heading into this event, and you're 3 for 4. You didn't get this one. Sorry, but you didn't. But Chase Elliott won this race. He won the Alsco Uniforms 500 for the Cup Series. It happened last night. It was supposed to be Wednesday night, but rain delayed the event. So Chase Elliott, I mean, once he got out front, it was his race to lose. And luckily for them, a caution did not come out. So Chase Elliott gets his first win of 2020, career win number 7 in the Cup Series. And I will start this time with Hal on the summary of the Alsco 500. Your take on it.
Justin, a 750 batting average is very good. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Appreciate it.
I gotta say, at the last lap, I had that horrible feeling watching Michael McDowell spin through the infield, going, "Wow, that was really close to being another horrible incident for Chase Elliott." Luckily for him, that was the last lap, and there was no caution. But that's some redemption this week. You go from Darlington, the spin, to that just not a horrible decision, but just an unfortunate decision that had to be made in the first Cup race this week, to winning the last one. That's a great redemption for Chase Elliott. The ultimate baby face goes out and wins at Charlotte. And I gotta say, I think he's also very lucky that caution didn't come out, because of the opposite reason why he's very unlucky that there wasn't another on Monday or on Sunday. Denny Hamlin was coming up, and he was coming up quick. So I think Chase Elliott, he got really, really lucky that nobody wrecked in the last few laps except Michael McDowell at the perfect time, really, for Chase Elliott. But great win for Chase and his fans. I mean, they're already on the high of the Truck Series win. I'm sure they only got louder whenever they got to see him win the Cup race.
I have 2 things to say about this. It's one, and how many times has Michael McDowell almost become the most hated person in NASCAR? Or how many times have we had that happen? And where Michael McDowell, somehow, some way, is in a situation where he gets in trouble at the worst possible, almost at the worst possible time, and turns everybody against him. I swear this has happened more than once. And second of all, I do not feel bad for the 10 residents of Dawsonville who were trying to sleep last night, and when the sirens went off. Just saying.
Siren went off.
But back to the point. Again, I mentioned it in the truck race. Chase Elliott does not win this race if he didn't win on Tuesday, I feel. But you also have to remember, what in the world happened to Kevin Harvick?
Oh.
Kevin Harvick, I mean, Harvick just completely lost it on that last run. It was his race to lose prior to Chase Elliott taking the lead. And I seriously thought we were going to have a great battle between Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott heading towards the end of the race. But Kevin Harvick dropped like a rock. He kept his top 10 streak, so free blooming onions on Monday, everyone. But again, it was a great win for Chase Elliott. Again, it's not the 600. It's not winning at Darlington, but it locks himself into the playoffs. It gets him the win, and he needs it. And it's just redemption. And so, again, I know he would much rather have a win at Darlington or Charlotte in the Coca-Cola 600, but this will suffice. He's heading at least into Sunday.
Yeah, I'd say for Chase Elliott, he led the final 28 laps in this race. So to go from the low of being turned at Darlington and gaining instant recognition with letting Kyle know who was number one, and then just everything that's happened. He started a week at a really low point, but he handled it really well. To his credit, he handled it extremely well. Maybe not with the finger, but still handled it well. And then to just go up and then, first having that win taken away on that pit call, which I'd say was really, really questionable. But he still finished second. He was mad driving. You could tell that. Going all the way up to second, to finish second at least. And then to win the truck race, then win the cup race 2 days later. Talk about a wide range of emotions there. It's really, really something to just gaze in awe at. Maybe not that, but you get my point. By the way, Kevin Harvick, you mentioned, Justin, he kept that top 10 points streak alive. He finished 10th. So he barely kept it alive. And as for your pick, Eric Jones, he was 26th. Don't worry, though. My pick was Kyle Busch, and he was 29th. He cut a tire early, about almost at the halfway point of the race, and went a couple laps down as a result. But, he came back to finish 29th, which, it's not that great. But he said on Twitter today, at least I didn't spin the car. And then, in quotes, I'm the best there is, plain and simple. Talk about trolling the NASCAR Twitter fan base there. That's something only Kyle can do.
Kyle, can we talk about this for a second? And either embrace the heel or don't embrace the heel. We've been going back and forth for the past couple of weeks. It's on the heel, him wanting to be the heel and him not wanting to be a heel. Pick a side, please. That way we can market this correctly, because right now we're not.
Well, I guess we'll just have to see how the rest of the season pans out to see what Kyle does. Will he embrace being the heel, or will he just continue straddling the middle? Who knows? By the way, before we go on to the next segment, a quick editor's note that I wanted to make. We didn't really go into much detail about Kevin Harvick's win at Darlington last year. I do want to bring up there was some significance behind it, because it was Kevin Harvick's 50th career win in the Cup Series. So we hadn't mentioned that last week because there were other matters at hand. But hey, Kevin Harvick got career win number 50 yesterday, or not yesterday, last couple of about 2 weeks ago at Darlington. It's been a weird day. I'll say that much.
It's been a weird couple of weeks. Let's put it that way. As a NASCAR fans, we have had lightning in rounds every single day. There's something new, something crazy. What happened yesterday? I don't care. Something's happening today. Hey, okay, we got to focus on what's happening today. Hey, what about what happened 2 weeks ago? And don't worry, Kevin Harvick only won his 50th race. That just seems like NASCAR is just going lightning round at this point.
They are.
And we're barely keeping up.
Yep,
hopefully this week we got a little bit of a calm.
It's NASCAR's world. We're just along for the ride. I guess that's one way to put it. Anyway, we're going to go into my segment, Sterling Spotlight. There are some drivers I want to talk about. First, Daniel Hemrick. Already mentioned him, but I do want to bring it up again. It's his best finish since returning to the Xfinity Series this season. Also want to talk about Zane Smith. He finished third in the truck race on Tuesday night. It's his best career finish in the truck series, and it's only his third race in his rookie season, his fourth career start, his third race with GMS Racing. I mean, he's already got 2 top 10s, and he was running really solid all night long. I mean, it was interesting to see him claw his way through the field and to get up to third, only finishing behind Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch. He was the highest finishing truck regular as a rookie, and I think now he's either leading the points or he's second in points in the truck series right now. So tip of the cap to Zane Smith for a fantastic run, a development driver for JR Motorsports last year. He's third in points. Thank you, Justin. Third. Another driver, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Yes, I know he has a reputation for being a crasher, but last night he finished fourth. I mean, he had been running up near the front almost all night too. So, I mean, he had been third in the late stages until Denny Hamlin started coming through the field like a rocket. So, yeah, Ricky Stenhouse, a top five finish for him, and it's just nothing short of impressive to see what a ride change has done for, I guess you could say for his career. This is already his second top 5 of the season. As I look, he only had 1 top 5 last year and 3 top 10s in 36 races with his last season at Roush Fenway. He already has 2 top 5s and 2 top 10s in 8 races for JTG Daugherty. So already some pretty marked improvement there. And next 2 drivers I want to talk about, or actually the last 2, I should say, John Hunter Nemechek and Bubba Wallace. Both of them had some really good runs last night. John Hunter Nemechek finished 8th in stage 2. Bubba Wallace was 10th. It really starts to look like their programs are making strides in the right direction. John Hunter Nemechek especially. I mean, he got a top 10 at Darlington driving front row motorsports equipment and was in position for a top 10 again last night. But a bad pit stop after the second stage sent it back in the field. He ended up making his way up to 13th. And as for Bubba Wallace, he finished 10th in stage 2, but then he got involved in an accident where he hit the wall, and that dropped him back to 37th. So an unfortunate finish for Bubba Wallace, and in a sense for John Hunter Nemechek, although Nemechek was able to recover from that.
I mean, 13th is nothing to complain about for front row motorsports outside of Talladega and Daytona.
I mean, Nemechek right now is ahead of Christopher Bell and Cole Custer in the points. Do you believe that?
He's ahead of Bubba. He's ahead of Michael McDowell, who I think we can all agree is one of the best. It's one of the best guys in mid-tier equipment. He's making Michael McDowell look terrible right now, and that's nothing against Michael McDowell because McDowell's having a pretty decent season as well. And keep in mind this: he's ahead of Corey LaJoie. Who saw that coming at the beginning of the season?
What can we say? Nemechek is John Hunter Nemechek. He's doing really well. I mean, he's considering the equipment he's in, he's doing fantastic. I mean, he's 21st in the standings. Cole Custer is 22nd. Christopher Bell has had a terrible start to the year. He's 29th in the standings. The only rookie that's ahead of John Hunter Nemechek is Tyler Reddick. And we've already documented on how well Reddick is doing at this point of the season.
Was the other rookie we have on the NASCAR side at the moment? Some guy named Quinn Hoff.
Oh, yeah, Half.
Never mind. Oh, yeah. 35th in points, only 30 points.
He only has one finish in the 20s.
We were talking about this earlier in the show. For context here, but why is Landon Castle not in that ride at the moment?
Yeah, we talked about it.
The world will never know.
Talked about a pre-show why Landon Castle isn't at Starcom right now. Who knows? But Quinn Half, only one finish in the 20s. I think it came at
Darlington.
All his other finishes have been in the 30s, or if there's been cars there, 40s. So, yeah, not good. Not good on that regard. And speaking of something not good, we move on to another topic that involves sim racing. Oh, yay! This is actually really confusing to talk about. Um, Daniel Abt was basically forced to leave his Audi Formula E ride after deceptive actions in an esports event. What happened was that during a simulated race, a sim racing event, um, it was alleged that Abt had entered the race and won the race by himself in his car that he had been driving. It turns out that there was actually a professional sim racer who was driving the car and not Abt himself. So he basically treated it kind of like it just, it's a fun thing, fun little thing to do. But Audi and other professionals in the industry did not see it that way. So Audi basically dropped Daniel Abt from their program in Formula E. I mean, I really don't know. I really don't know what to say about this. Hal, I'll start with you. Is there? I mean, I just gotta ask, what's your opinion on? Has Audi gone too far on sacking Daniel Abt from the team?
So you know how in the music industry there's a thing called ghost writers? Is this like a ghost racer? Is that what I've gotten this? Um, I don't think they went too far because that shows a little bit of your just personality there. You did not hesitate to cheat. That is just cheating. It's like cheating on a test. It's a bad character shown. Now, I get if you think it's just a fun thing, I get it, I guess. You know, you take it that seriously, but we've seen it in NASCAR racing or racing. It has been shown that your actions do matter. I mean, as much as I disagreed with the Bubba Wallace Blue Emu departure, all he did was rage quit. That's not even cheating at the event. This was just straight up cheating.
Well, I mean,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
I mean, like, I think I'm not sure it's fair, but it shows basically don't cheat, maybe. It seems like something that should not have to be said.
I mean, I still, I don't know. I'll save my take on this. Justin, what's your take on this whole situation?
It's honestly confusing. I'll say that, and we have now completed the trifecta of sim racing blunders. All three series have now had blunder. IndyCar with the Indianapolis finish, NASCAR double dipped in controversy, and now the Formula gets their turn. The chaos of just what the heck has video games become. I will say this as this was a situation of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Is you decide to have a professional sim racer decide to take part in this event, and as a joke, you should be able to at least recognize that the sponsors do take this seriously. Even though you are not out on the racetrack right now, the sponsors are taking it seriously. And again, it comes down to you representing your brand on and off the racetrack. I've talked about this 3 times now on this show, where drivers have gone out and made almost fools of themselves, and it has cost them either reputation, sponsorships, or their careers altogether. Here, so This is just another situation of play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Okay, for just from my perspective on this, I mean, the thing is, it's a sim race. Let me share the screen for the article from ESPN on this situation, or at least they source it to Reuters. I'll go ahead and share this anyway. So Audi sacked German driver Daniel Lamb from their Formula E team because he, quote, made a conscious decision to go against the rules in an esports competition. He was punished for having a professional gamer, a professional sim racer, compete for him in the Race at Home Challenge, a virtual series involving regular drivers from the All-Electric Championship. Now, I understand trying to take, I can see why some people would take this pretty seriously, but at the same time, you got to think of it, in my opinion, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Think about it from a real racing driver's perspective. They look at sim racing as, it's close to the real thing, but it'll never be the real thing. And there was an article that I saw from Robin Miller that was really scathing of sim racing in general. The title of Miller's article for Racer.com says enough about it. The title is Enough of This Nonsense. So, and Robin Miller, he's always known for being not afraid to speak his mind. I think that's what makes him such a notable and also respected journalist in the motorsports industry. He'll put out a lot of controversial stuff. Last year, he said Indy 500 shouldn't have bump day, which I heavily disagreed with. Why on earth would you get rid of bump day? I really don't understand why. And after the Fernando Alonso situation at Indy, that kind of changed the tune of everything, that bump day should stay. But, I kind of side with Robin Miller on this, because if you're looking at it, let's say if you're running in the e-racing pro series for NASCAR, the sanctioned series that's there, you're going to treat e-racing, you're going to treat sim racing a lot different than you would if you're Clint Boyer. We saw what Clint Boyer did behind the wheel of that iRacing sim. He really didn't care where he finished. He just took it. He just did it for fun, basically. It's a game to these drivers. To a real racing driver, most of the time, they're going to look at this and see it as nothing more than a game. Something that is fun to play on, fun to race on, but it's not the real thing. They already have that in real life when they got back to racing. Then you have guys like William Byron, or even to an extent Kyle Larson and Timmy Hill, Ty Majeski. They basically trained to be the race car drivers that they are today because of iRacing and because of sim racing, being inside those simulations and racing the way that they do out there. That's why Timmy Hill and William Byron were the favorites to win week in and week out on these iRacing events, is because they have a lot of experience. They took it really seriously. Maybe not too seriously, but they took it seriously. They treated it as a professional thing. Guys like Clint Boyer or Kyle Busch or another longtime veteran of the sport, they're not going to see it the same way. That I feel is the perspective that Robin Miller's coming from. Daniel Abt, he's a young guy, like 21, 22 years old, but he still has experience with the real thing. He probably doesn't think much of the sim racing series. And he hired a professional gamer to do it. Does it look bad on him? Yes. Not even caring, it seems, but I don't know if it was really worth losing his ride over. That's the one thing I don't really agree with. I can understand Audi maybe talking to him and saying, okay, we saw what you did. Just don't do it again. But to cut him loose like that, just straight away, I don't know. There's something about that doesn't sit well with me.
Again, it's a devil's advocate where I think what they didn't like was the fact that he didn't show commitment to it. Because as I'm going to play the devil's advocate for the sponsor here, I want my guy out racing in these events because I am paying money to these teams to put my sponsor, my logo, my brand on the race car or week in and week out. So for you to not care for me putting in an investment into your car, or why would I want you? Why would I want you on my race team if you're not willing to invest into the brand both on and off the racetrack? And that's where I could see the Audi, and I could see where the sponsors are going and from. The drivers may not care or to do public appearances, even though I think a lot of guys do enjoy doing those. But it's the sponsors who are making them do it. It's the sponsors that are saying, "Hey, you need to be here or at this hour, this place. Hey, you need to race for us." So I'm not entirely sure of the circumstances. I'm not an inside expert into what's going on at Audi, but I am a sponsor. I want you out on the racetrack and not some pro guy. I'm not paying the pro guy at the race. I'm paying you. I am paying you to race, or I am paying you when we go back racing and on the Formula E side, because Formula E isn't probably going to get going for a good 2 months here. Why should I pay you if you're not going to show up?
Yeah. I will share a little bit of the Robin Miller article that I found on racer.com, which I think the paragraph that I highlighted pretty much says what his stance on it was. This was after talking about all the different incidents that had happened, saying, quote, "Please stop acting like this madness matters to real racers, because it doesn't. And in the past couple months, it's been more damaging than Twitter to 4 professionals." Of course, talking Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, Daniel Lapt, and I'm sorry, but I forget who the 4th one is right at this moment.
It's probably it's been so long now. It feels like forever ago since the IndyCar incident.
Yeah. Continuing with Miller's article, "Fake racing shouldn't have any consequences in the real world unless you make a mistake like Larson," which we obviously know what Larson did, "who is paying for it dearly but learned a tough lesson. All I know for sure is that I was so sick of hearing and reading about computer racing that I was happy to watch a real NASCAR race." So, yeah, Robin Miller did not pull any punches on that article. It was clear about that. But I don't know what awaits Daniel Lapt in the future. I mean, he's been one of the only drivers in Formula E to have competed in every race since the series inception in 2014. Where he goes from here, I don't know. We'll just have to find out.
Ain't gonna be with Audi.
It ain't going to be with Audi, that's for sure. And even the 2-time Formula E champ, Jean-Eric Verne, was questioning the such a heavy penalty that Audi handed down. Verne tweeted out, "After all, this is a game that should be taken seriously, but it's a game." So, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, well, Abt should have raced, and, I mean, he got what was coming. Then there are others, I guess I could throw myself in this boat and say, well, yeah, he probably should have, but I mean, it's just a game to these guys. The penalty was a little harsh.
Here's my question: is literally why didn't you just sit down for those like 2 or 3 hours? That's all it took. There's really no reason why he did it, other than it just feels like sheer laziness to not do it. Because really, you don't have much else to do.
Perhaps. I mean, if there was some other engagement, maybe, but I mean, it's hard to find engagements, especially with this pandemic era that we're living in. So,
Yeah, I'll say this. I don't necessarily agree that he should have lost his ride over this. I think there's half a dozen and more suitable punishments for it, but I I also kind of had to side with the sponsor saying I do not want you here if you're going to be lazy.
fair enough. With that, I mean, we've gone over that topic quite a bit, or at least we've discussed on it quite a bit. Let's move on to I'm sorry, this show is rather depressing tonight.
How about hang on, and before we get into more depressing stuff, how about we have a little bit of fun here? Or
That's
when's
a
the
good
last
idea.
time?
Let's move something up.
When's the last time I've heard something about the money team? Hal, do you have anything on the money team for us tonight?
I fire up the Google machine.
Goodness.
Do we have anything? That's about Williams. That's not the money team. Thanks, Google. All right. So, what is there about Floyd Mayweather and his money team? I mean, it technically exists, and technically they have a number, and that's still it. Jeffrey Earnhardt might be in it. I don't know. Probably not.
I mean, Jeffrey drove for JD Motorsports and for Xfinity this weekend. He even brought a jack off pit road, one of the jacks that got stuck in the car, and he just drove off with it. So, yeah, JD Motorsports might have to pay for that, unfortunately. But yeah, no news on the money team. That's your official money team update for this week. Now let's get into that depressing topic that was up next initially. And how you searched money team, the first thing that came up was Williams, right?
Yep, I pressed news and it said Williams.
Yep, Williams is the topic of this next segment. In all seriousness, though, this is just really sad. Williams F1 team, they have announced that they are considering selling their Formula One team after a dip in the company's financial results. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and share this screen from an article courtesy of BBC. If I can get there. This is from Andrew Benson. He's the chief F1 writer for BBC Sport. The Williams Formula One team and the collective ownership group, they've announced that they are up for sale after posting a £13 million loss during the last season of F1 in 2019. It marks a major change in direction for a company whose founder, Sir Frank Williams, had previously always insisted on retaining control. Deputy team principal Claire Williams, that's Frank's daughter, announced that Frank has always ensured he puts the team, business, and the people first, and that's what they're doing right now. The goal is to secure the team's future through internal investment, which, I mean, it's something they really, really need, considering their financial situation. But just to back out of that, the Williams Grand Prix Holdings Group, they reported £13 million loss for last year against profits of $12.9 million in 2018, and a new investment will now be sought. In addition to that, Williams has ended their relationship with title sponsor Rocket with immediate effect. Rocket is a drink company based in the UK, and their logo will no longer be on their cars. And they were supposed to be on their car for 2020. However, with the season being delayed, and with the announcement today, Williams will no longer have Rocket branding on their cars. But just to recap on this, This is honestly just a really sad situation, considering Williams used to be one of the giants of Formula One. I mean, you could go back years, decades, and see eras of dominance where they were the cream of the crop. And man, the fall from grace for the Williams team has been really, really tough to watch. And I mean, they've gone through stretches where they were on top, and then there were some years where they were struggling, where they couldn't, they just didn't have any luck. I mean, you look back at their championship seasons. If I can, I'm trying to find their results that they had. Well, all right. They've produced 7 different world champions for their team. Alan Jones in 1980, K.K. Rosberg in 1982, Nelson Piquet in 87, and then 2 championships in a row for their team with Nigel Mansell in 92 and Alain Prost in 93, and then 2 back-to-back championships again a few years later with Damon Hill in 96 and Jacques Villeneuve in 97. Villeneuve is the last time that Williams won a world championship in the driver's standings. But, I mean, you go back to just even years earlier, they World Constructors Champions in the following seasons, 1980, 81, 86, 87, 92, 93, and 94, 96, 97. In fact, 97 was the last time they won a World Constructors Championship. But even in those years, in a lot of those years where they didn't win, they were up in the top 3 for constructors. Then they took a step back starting in 2004 and performance declined, but then they came back in 2014. It was really a revival for that team when they got Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas on their team. I mean, Bottas entered his second year with the squad, but then Felipe Massa came over from Ferrari, and things just really clicked all of a sudden. I mean, they had earned 5 points as a team. Williams had earned 5 points in 2013 with Pastor Maldonado and Bottas as a rookie. Then they get to 2014. They had 320 points with Massa and Bottas. And then they finished third in the Constructors' Championship the year after in 2015. But ever since Massa left after 2017 and Bottas went to Mercedes, the team really took a nosedive. Just really bad results all around. I mean, the team only scored 1 point last year, and that was with Robert Kubica at the German Grand Prix. So, I mean, I've gone on a long time for the Williams team, but Sir Frank Williams is one of, I mean, he's a legend. He's an icon around the paddock for Formula One. It's to see such a well-known, iconic team for a very long time in Formula One. I mean, they've been around the sport since 1977. They're one of the most recognizable names in F1, even from years past, right up there with McLaren and Ferrari. They're an independent team too. So, I mean, it's really sad to see. I've gone on long enough. Justin, do you have anything to add on about Williams' situation?
I mean, Constructors' Championships, 21.4%, and they've won it 21.4% of the time, even with their most recent struggles. Drivers' Championship winning percentage, 16.7%, and 15.6% for winning percentage in every single race. The team hasn't won in years, and yet they are still the iconic Williams Grand Prix team. This team's been around for longer than any team out there. There are very few teams in motorsports that last this long. There are very few teams that are legacy teams. We don't see these types of teams roll around anymore, and they take years to build. You know, it's almost sad, and again, I hope that this is not the case. I mean, this is not the end, and there is still a potential for someone to come in and save the day here. But we also have to accept the reality that this is the motorsports industry, and usually once teams are considering selling, and usually there's enough blood in the water and the sharks start swimming around it. It's not an easy thing to say that Williams might go under.
Yeah.
It's a iconic legacy car. I mean, we talk about Haas F1 leaving. We've been talking about it for months. It's the potential for Haas F1 leaving. Haas F1, yeah, it's bad because it's the only American-based group. But Williams Haas is going to be a footnote in the history of F1. This is a giant team. This is a mega team in the history of F1, I'm sorry. I can only think of Junior Johnson's team when he shut down. Just for the scale of comparison that at the entire Williams shutting down, that's how big it is. That's the only thing I could compare it to.
I think if I had to compare it to a current day situation that we've kind of thought about but never thought would be a real reality, was like Roush going under, where we thought it's been going down for so long and the money hasn't been there. The time's going to come where Roush will go under, but it's never come. This is, I feel like, is Formula One's current, I would say it's not even equivalent. This is bigger. This is the third most wins for a constructor in F1 history. That's massive to lose that team. And really, I can't imagine that someone isn't going to want to invest in them, though, because of that history, because there's profit to be made there if you can get that team back up to speed, which is a hard task, I understand. But I feel like there has to be someone out there willing to take that risk and do it, because you can't just see it go down the tubes like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that there's an investor out there that's willing to put in the time and the effort and the money and the finance behind the team to try to at least bring the team back to a little bit of greatness. There was still some life in it. I mean, 2013 they had a struggling year. They only had 5 points. That I think was their worst season up to that point. And then 2014 comes around, and they just clicked right away with their new car. It was the first year that they had the dual hybrid V8 or V6 engine package for Formula One. They put it out there, and they were the only two teams that they trailed that year were Mercedes and Red Bull. I think they were even better than Ferrari that year. So Williams still had some life, and then last year was their worst season that they've ever had. Only 1 point and dead last in constructors. But the talk about an investor, I do want to bring up another team into this conversation, the team of Sauber Motorsport and Sauber F1. The internet connection is taking a little while, but there was a time where Sauber Motorsport, here we go. Just trying to find, okay, so what had happened is that they were an independent team for the last few years of their existence. They had a partnership with, in fact, they currently have a partnership with Alfa Romeo right now. They're competing under as Alfa Romeo Racing, where they currently field cars for Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi. But before that, they were an independent team running with, they had a partnership with Mercedes-Benz. Then they had an alliance with Red Bull and running Ford engines in the mid-90s. Then you go to an alliance with Petronas Engineering in 1997 and continuing that for almost a decade up until 2006, where BMW invested a lot of money behind Sauber, and they became a BMW factory team. And when they did that, when BMW and Sauber, it was BMW Sauber, when they got together in 2006, the results for the team really climbed up quite significantly. In fact, it ended up resulting in some race wins some years down the road, or maybe not race wins, but if you remember the story of Robert Kubica, the Polish driver, he scored his lone career Formula One Grand Prix win at the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix. That came driving for BMW Sauber. So they were a really fast team when BMW had their support behind the team. They invested a lot of money into that program, and Sauber became a competitor that year. In fact, now I've got their full results up here. When BMW partnered with them, beginning in 2006, those were the best years that the Sauber squad had. They finished 5th in the constructors' standings in 2006 with 36 points, but that was the most points that the Sauber team had ever scored as a constructor in F1. 2007, they were 2nd in the constructors' standings with Nick Heidfeld and Robert Kubica driving for them, just bringing in consistent finish after consistent finish over and over. Then they had 3rd in what was a really competitive 2008 campaign. They only trailed Ferrari and McLaren in the constructor standings that year with Heidfeld and Kubica driving. So, and then the partnership ended after 2009, where Sauber became an independent team again, and they trailed off ever since then. So, I mean, I think now the partnership is actually done with Alfa Romeo. I want to correct myself on that because they were labeled as Alfa Romeo Sauber in 2018. However, now it appears that they are no longer really associated with Alfa Romeo. But still, back to the BMW example. A really big company invested in Sauber, and they became really, really good just for those few years. But they became a top competing team, a competitive at a really high level. If another company were to do that with the Williams team, there could still be some life left in that program. But we'll have to wait and see if an investor comes along.
I mean, the only problem is, if this was 2019 and we were talking an investor coming in, and oh yeah, I would think that would be definitely in the cards. However, we also have to accept the reality that this is 2020. We are in a pandemic, and I don't think there are going to be a lot of buyers coming in. I've said that before. I don't think we're going to have a lot of buyers or investors wanting to come in, because as to make money in F1, you have to spend money. You have to spend lots of money. You spend more money than you do make money.
Yep.
And I'm not sure there is a willing person with the amount of capital needed to continue to keep this team alive. Even with the cap coming next season, I just don't see anybody like right now, I should say, in the cards as for buying this team. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't one out there. I just can't see it at the moment.
Yeah. I feel like we'll have a better idea of what there is available once this pandemic subsides, once everything starts getting into place. Because I feel like there will be an investor coming. I just don't think they're going to be coming right this minute. It might not happen for another month or two, but hopefully if the season gets underway, or I'm going to try to be optimistic here, when the season gets underway, we'll have a better idea of if there are any investors available for the Williams team. So let's that was rather depressing. So let's do on a quick rapid fire segment, a quick debate back and forth, almost PTI style, hearkening to some of the older NASCAR broadcasts from a decade and a half ago. Let's bring the segment of gas and go in here. Quick debate between Hal and Justin. I'll give both of you some maybe 30 seconds to a minute on this subject. So I'll be asking you some questions. Let's start. I'll go with Hal first and then Justin. Hal, we'll start with you. The question, is Hendrick Motorsports back?
Absolutely. Hey, look at how they've been performing recently. Jimmy Johnson looks like he's been in a time machine if you take out his horrible failed post-race inspection. Chase Elliott is living up to the expectations we've all kind of had for him. William Byron's had good runs except for some bad luck with tires. Alex Bowman has been incredibly impressive in the last week or so. I think Hendrick's finally put it all together, and this year we'll see them dominating like they used to.
Justin?
I think it's a situation like Texas. Are they good again? Yes, they are good. They're very good. Are they title contenders? Can they compete with if Toyota and Penske for a spot in the Final Four? I still don't see it quite yet. I am not sold on the fact that Hendrick is fully back to where they were 5 years ago when Jimmy Johnson won the title. I still think they got a long way to go. But they are improving on the mile halves, so it is a start.
All right, next topic. I'll start with Justin on this next question because there's 4 questions here. Justin, is Stewart-Haas Racing in trouble?
I think they absolutely are in trouble right now. If you look at the way Cole Custer, again, only a rookie, but right now Cole Custer is not producing at the level we thought he was going to be producing at. You have Eric Almirola. Right now, he's been solid, but you always feel like you need more out of Stewart-Haas. He shouldn't be the 2 at Stewart-Haas. Clint Boyer being consistent, but he hasn't been good. The only guy who's been carrying that team is Kevin Harvick, and we always have to keep in mind Father Time is not on Harvick's side. So I absolutely think they are in trouble going forward, especially into this free agency class where they've already lost their top free agent candidate. And I think Stewart-Haas is going to have to take a very hard look this offseason on what they want to do. Because right now, you have a guy in 14th, 9th, and 1st, in one of the best 3, I would say, a top 4 organizations in the sport right now. That shouldn't be Stewart-Haas. That should be a RCR or Roush or Chip Ganassi.
All right. How is Stewart-Haas Racing in trouble?
Yeah, I think so for all the reasons that Justin listed. Along with, we just watched like a pinpoint example of what might go wrong with Stewart-Haas. Kevin Harvick was dominating that race and for no certain reason dropped off the face of the earth near the end of it. And you see that, and it's concerning when you look at the rest of the team with Clint Boyer and Eric Almirola. I'd say that neither of them should be that organization's number 2 driver. I'd say those are your bordering guys, the guys who are always their job's kind of on the line. And Cole Custer, you compare him to his peers, not just that he's a rookie, we can give him that, but compared to his peers that are also rookies. Tyler Reddick is overperforming at RCR right now, and he is also a rookie. John Hunter Nemechek is also overperforming at Front Row Motorsports. Front Row Motorsports. You are in Stewart-Haas equipment. You should be above these guys at least. I know they're very talented and all, but so are you. So I think they are in trouble because Cole Custer is the future, and he is looking like he's behind everybody else who's the future.
Yeah, I mean, and I will chime in my own little bit on this. Daniel Suarez was in that car last year just for 1 season, and given Suarez had 2 more years of Cup experience on Custer, well, 3 technically, but 2 in that car last year. Suarez was actually putting in some pretty good runs in that 41 car at this point last year. Custer has a top 10 at Phoenix, but that's a 9th place finish. And only 1 other finish inside the top 15. Everything else has been outside the top 15. That's not really good. So, yeah, we'll just. I mean, it's impressive to see. It'll be interesting to see what Custer and the rest of Stewart Haas Racing does. Hal, I'm going to start with you on this next question. You mentioned Tyler Reddick and how he's outperforming his equipment at RCR, and Bubba Wallace. He had a really good run going at RPM last night until that late incident. My question is, are RCR and RPM recovering for good?
I can't say for good. I can't say for good because RCR has the issue with me is Tyler Reddick is a very good driver, but Austin Dillon does not belong in the 3 car. I understand why he's there and all, but they're in 15th and 17th, and Bubba Wallace is in 23rd in the standings right now. If this is what back is, I know the recent performances have been nice, but there's regression to the mean, and I feel like it'll come. Not with Tyler Reddick. I think he's going to continue overperforming because he has shown he'll overperform anyone's expectations over and over again. But Austin Dillon is going to drop and show that Richard Childress Racing isn't really back until they get someone real good in that 3 car. And Bubba Wallace, he can carry that car. He's done so well, but Richard Petty Motorsports has just never taken a big jump, and I don't think this is the year they do it.
Justin?
Again, I hope that the performance that Bubba Wallace has been doing is at least enough to get the sponsors to continue to pay for that 43 car. I don't think that RPM is going to be back anytime soon. We're not going to see a Richard Petty style. We're not going to even see what Eric Almirola was able to do in that car for half a decade or so. And is RCR back? No. I mean, you have a cornerstone of the future. You have Tyler Reddick. But you also have to build your foundation in the Xfinity Series. You have to reestablish the line of succession and that you have missed because you decided to force feed the Dillon brothers in. You wasted a lot of good drivers who went to a bunch of different other race teams because you decided to put the Dillons. Where that's right or wrong, to be determined. Ty Dillon is actually doing pretty well at Germain Racing, and in 24th place. He's doing a very solid job. Austin Dillon, 15th place this season, and yeah, he's doing pretty good. But right now, it seems like he is overperforming in terms of finishes. He's not in those positions. He's gaining positions at the end of the race compared to where he's running on average. I just feel like the law of returns and the law of averages is going to catch up to Austin Dillon and that race team eventually. So I don't think they're back yet. I think they're on their way to recovering, but it's not going to be any recovery until you get that Xfinity program back up and running.
All right. And my last question, I'll start with Justin on this. Will Ryan Newman or Matt Kenseth make the playoffs, yes or no?
I hate to say it, but no. Matt Kenseth has obviously shown that Fire Time has caught up to him. He's 48, and besides the fluke run on Darlington, I just can't – he's just struggled in the last 3 races. And so I don't see him coming back up. He should be in the top 30 right now. He's 32nd in points. And Ryan Newman, and he's a pointer. He's not a winner. He's a consistent driver who points his way into the playoffs. That's how he gets in, and that's why he's on the bubble every single year. He is 80 points back. And RCR, not RCR, but Roush Fenway cannot win at any given racetrack unless it's a restrictor plate race. We have seen that over the past couple of years. The last win to come not on the restrictor plate was Greg Biffle back in Michigan in 2013. I think it was 2012 over 2013, if I am not mistaken.
2013 in Michigan, I believe.
2013 in Michigan. And so I don't think either of them are going to get into the playoffs because they're just too far back. And I don't see either of them winning to get in.
All right. How? Matt Kenseth or Ryan Newman, does either one make it or none or both?
I wanted to say that I thought maybe Matt Kenseth had a hope, but you look at his recent performances after the first race back at Darlington, and he has just not been good. I think what happened at Darlington was he was on the same field as everybody else. Nobody had raced in a long time, and that he was on that same page. He hadn't raced in a while, but it's starting to show. He hasn't raced in a while. He hasn't raced in 2 years consistently on a week-to-week basis, and it shows. Really, it shows. Ryan Newman, he came back, and he looks like he's been in the car. He has been racing, and he's had his consistent finishes of 15th or so. And I mean, that's kind of what you expect, though. That's not going to make the playoffs. It somehow made it last year, and we were all surprised. But I just don't see that happening now because the races he missed pushed him so far back. Those consistent runs just aren't going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, ever since Matt Kenseth had his top 10 run at Darlington, where he finished 10th. His next 3 finishes afterward, the second race at Darlington, he was 30th. And then the 2 races at Charlotte, he finished 26th and 23rd, respectively. As for Ryan Newman, I mean, ever since his accident, he came back to Darlington, got a top 15, finished 14th in the other race at Darlington, but then the 2 races at Charlotte, he was 27th and 17th. I mean, those are finishes we can expect from Newman from time to time regularly, even from last year when you base it on that. But still, I mean, that's not going to be enough to point away into the playoffs. If you want to get in the playoffs, you've got to win. And I don't know Newman, I think his best chance of winning is on a super speedway like Talladega or Daytona. And even then, the chances of that happening are pretty low. Same with Matt Kenseth. I think that's his best chance if he wants to try to get a win and make the playoffs, unless he makes a big resurgence from this stretch on, which I'm just not sure if that's going to happen, and I don't really see it happening. Let's move on to the next. Some other news that I want to just go over a bit. The Dutch Grand Prix for Formula One has officially been canceled for 2020. However, they do plan on returning for 2021. It is unfortunate because the Dutch Grand Prix was going to be F1's return there for the first time in many, many years. But, I mean, it'll be nice to see it come back in 2021, hopefully, with that Circuit Zandvoort and that banking on the last corner.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun to see it come back. The IndyCar season opener at Texas. Here's a positive one. We've been on some down news for a while, but here's a positive step. The IndyCar season opener at Texas was recently announced that it will be moved from NBCSN to the network NBC. Raise those hands up high and praise the Lord.
Woo!
We are getting NBC at Texas for IndyCar. Now, I don't believe there are going to be any fans in attendance. However, the NBC broadcast crew will be in the booth for that race rather than broadcasting remotely in, I think it was Connecticut, the initial plan. That race, again, will be on June 6th on NBC, Network NBC.
Really great so wrong.
I'm just imagining Roger Penske with a trophy and those laser eyes just stonks. That meme. Anyway.
I mean, NBC, shout out to them. For as much as we like to complain about TV coverage, NBC has done a phenomenal job with both IndyCar and NASCAR over the past couple of years. And now we're having it on the main network. I mean, nothing else is going on. And what else are we going to air on our Sunday? A more figure skating and Madison Square Garden dog show from Thanksgiving. Maybe, I don't know, gymnastics, like a gymnastics competition. I don't know. You're airing pretty much everything from the Olympic channel on the main network anyways on Sundays now. So it'll be good to see that and NBC made the decision. This is going to be on the main network, and hopefully this attracts some people to follow IndyCar, not just for the 500, but for all of the races this season.
Yeah, I mean, it tends to be one of the most entertaining races of the year, so fingers crossed that the race ends up going really, really well. Also, going on, here's what could be a redemption story in the making. Kyle Larson, obviously, what he did during that iRacing event at Virtual Monza was reprehensible. We documented it really well on the show last month. However, he completed racial sensitivity training, and he has gone back to racing in the World of Outlaws. And last weekend, he won his first World of Outlaws event since his NASCAR suspension at I-55 Speedway. Larson called it one of the biggest wins of his career, and he was so thankful and grateful in his post-race interview. I mean, say what you want about what Kyle Larson, like whether or not he really deserves a second chance, because I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that will dislike Larson forever and ever because of what happened, understandably. But at the same time, with Larson, I feel like if this is really his second chance at a racing career, a second chance at his future, really. And yeah, it's overall, it's really nice to see what could be a redemption story, because I mean, it seems like he genuinely learned from sensitivity training, and if he gets a second chance at NASCAR, then so be it. But I mean, it's nice to see this, to see what could be a redemption in the making. So if no one has any comment on that, we'll go on to the next one with Steve O'Donnell announcing that their next portion of the NASCAR schedule will be coming out next week. And in fact, there's been a leak of that schedule. It was late breaking right before we hit record to start this show tonight. Justin, I believe you have the site that was there. It was a tweet that was sent out by Jeff Gluck of an article written by Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic for their NASCAR coverage, and waiting to see.
I'll go ahead and share the, let's see, I'm just going to share the page of the agenda of tonight. Okay, let's see.
Very well.
There we go.
Okay, so now that we have a look at the agenda here, you can see this is what is intended, what is believed to be the next portion of the schedule after Talladega on Father's Day weekend. This is for the Cup Series, we should mention, and there are some other notes added in. June 27th and 28th will remain the Pocono Raceway doubleheader. The Truck Series will race on Saturday, Xfinity on Sunday, while the Cup Series will run on both Saturday and Sunday. It'll be a doubleheader at Pocono. Then the Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on 4th of July weekend, July 5th. There have been some recent reports saying that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is anticipating relaxing some restrictions and guidelines there. That is, of course, dependent on the situation and revolving around the pandemic. Best case scenario, they would be willing to allow fans in there up to 75% capacity at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And again, 75% capacity there is, I mean, Indy has a capacity of, I want to say around
250,000.
250,000 right now. Even more for the Indy 500, but that's standing room also in the infield and, the rest. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 75% capacity. That's best case scenario if they're allowing fans in. Again, that would be July 5th. July 12th, the NASCAR Cup Series goes to Kentucky Speedway for a Sunday afternoon race. Then July 15th, they travel to Charlotte for the All-Star race. This is where the All-Star race has been slotted in. They still plan on doing it. Then they'll go to Texas Motor Speedway July 19th, deep in the heart of Texas, in the southern U.S. in mid-July. Fingers crossed no one gets heat stroke. Then July 23rd, this is interesting. They're planning on a Thursday event at my home track of Kansas Speedway. I would dearly hope that that's a Thursday night event because, trust me, late July in Kansas and bordering Missouri, it is hot, really, really hot. So there's that. And it looks as though NASCAR is trying to give the Cup drivers an off week after that, because then the next race is slated for August 2nd at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And then they will travel up to Michigan to do a doubleheader August 8th and 9th. This leaves Daytona, the 2 Dover races, and Watkins Glen for scheduled regular season races that are yet to be announced. Again, we want to emphasize this was from a article written by Jordan Bianchi of what the schedule is, what it could be, what it's likely to be. However, the next portion of the schedule will be confirmed by Steve O'Donnell next week. I guess I'll add on Hal, Justin, either one of you, is there anything else to add about this whole situation?
I just want to say that I'm not sure about the All-Star race. It just exactly, I understand it's always been a big deal. But this year, it just doesn't feel like it should be. It doesn't feel like it should be happening because it's an all-star event, no points. I think still $1 million on the line, which is of course a big motivator. But we've watched 2 races in the last week at Charlotte, and I think many fans would say that they don't want to see that package at Charlotte again, just off of those 2 races.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of having Charlotte again and having a 4th race this season. People can barely stand 3 races at that racetrack, let alone a 4th, or it would be an absolute nightmare. But as far as track scheduling goes, oh boy, this is going to be a rough stretch for NASCAR, or in terms of dog days of summer. Or you have Pocono, which has not been the best of races the past couple of years. There's Indianapolis, which has been very hot and very cold. We've had some good races there, but we've had more times than not. We've had some very bad stinkers. There's Kentucky, which is almost universally hated by the NASCAR fan base. Although it's been decent the past couple of years. People are still questioning why that track has a race. Then you have the All-Star race. Again, the All-Star race there are a good amount of tracks that pay more, or in terms of prize money, for their regular race than they do the All-Star race. And it just doesn't make Daytona 500. It is one of them. At least that's what I remember from the NASCAR Illustrated magazines when they came out with their racing and result page back in the day. But then you have Texas, which is going to be hopefully hot and slick. Texas actually sounds pretty interesting. And it would be interesting to see what they can do with the 5 wide kind of racetrack that they have at Texas. And I would also highlight that race because they can hold up to 25% capacity now that the governor has allowed sporting venues to contain that amount of fans. So NASCAR could have fans at that racetrack. Then you have Kansas, which is going to be almost similar to the spring race. In terms of temperatures. It's just in terms of the Sunday, kind of towards the later end of May. And so hopefully that remains a night race. I assume that would be a night race.
Fingers crossed. Not confirmed for sure, but we'll see.
New Hampshire on August 2nd. And you have to throw in New Hampshire at some point. And then Michigan, you knew they were going to get doubleheader, or no matter what, I like it or not. But that does bring an interesting point to Daytona, the 2 Dover races, and Watkins Glen. Because if I am not mistaken, and this is according to the NASCAR schedule that is out right now, they have right now, we are scheduled to start the playoffs by September 6th. We are supposed to start the playoffs by Labor Day weekend and for the Southern 500. So that leaves us 3 racetracks in 3 weeks. So I would assume that Daytona is going to remain the final regular season race. I think that date is probably going to be locked in. And I think Watkins Glen is probably going to be the second to last race, if not the third to last race. Or fourth to last race. It just depends on where you put the double. And I'm almost guaranteeing that Dover is going to get a double header. Because if you're doing a double header at Michigan and Pocono, which are much further out than those two, than Dover, they're compared to the rest of the racetracks, Dover's going to get a double header. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to cram in these remaining races onto the schedule.
It makes sense to have the Dover doubleheader, considering they have 2 races contracted, at least. They have 2 races that they were supposed to run, and they haven't run them yet. And if the schedule pans out the way that it's been leaked, then a doubleheader at Dover makes the most sense, in my opinion. Watkins Glen, it's still up in the air considering the state of New York right now with the pandemic going on. If those numbers start tailing off, then there is a chance that they can go to Watkins Glen.
Governor has approved Watkins Glen and to be open, so that is a thing.
Okay, so I would say NASCAR would go to, I don't know which one would be first, whether it'd be the Dover doubleheader or Watkins Glen. You could go either way, flip a coin on that. But Daytona, the way that they align the schedule, it seems like they're committed that they want to have the Daytona race be the final race of the regular season. Even though it's in the prime of hurricane season, and I really don't like that choice of a date, but they seem pretty dead set on it. So considering all of the chaos that's happened already this season, I'd actually be fine with Daytona where they would want it as the regular season finale. So now that we've talked about the schedule, we've gone over Williams F1 sale, we've gone over budding rivalry with Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott. We've gone through a lot of stuff. Let's get to the good stuff and make some picks, shall we?
Let's do it.
So let me get to wrong button. Okay, we'll start with the race that will be on Sunday. The NASCAR Cup Series Food City presents the Supermarket Heroes 500. Now, there were no time trials for this event. Qualifying was done in a random draw of sorts. However, it was the top 20 competitors and then the bottom 20 as well. There are 40 cars that will start the race on Sunday at Bristol Motor Speedway, and Brad Keselowski again is on the pole. I mean,
seen that story too many times this season.
It's hard to be as lucky as Keselowski right now. Actually, I'll go ahead and share the screen because I've got the starting lineup pulled up right now. Let's go ahead and get that up there. Here we go. So Brad Keselowski and Eric Almirola are on the front row. In fact, Fords take the top 4 spots with Penske occupying 3 of those 4. Martin Truex Jr. is the highest starting Toyota. Chase Elliott, the highest starting Chevy, in 6th. We will start this week's picks with the most dominant crew member of the Burnin Rubber family on this last week, Justin Palmer. Justin, make your first pick. Who do you think is going to win at Bristol?
It is time for Toyota to take back at the A circuit. And Toyota has been dominant at Bristol. Oh, I do not see them losing to Bristol now that Kyle Larson is out at Bristol. So the winner is going to be a Toyota at Bristol. Now, which of the 5 Toyotas that can reasonably run and for the win and is going to win Bristol? Oh, I'm going with a guy who hasn't won this season. And it is time for Rowdy to strike back. Give me Kyle Busch as the winner for Sunday's race. It has been way too long since we've seen that 18 at Victory Lane.
All right, Justin Palmer picking Kyle Busch to win the Food City Supermarket Heroes 500 at Bristol. Hal, your pick for 500 laps at Bristol.
Fun fact about the last 5 races at Bristol in the Cup Series, Busch has won 4 of them. Kyle has won 3 of them, but I'm going with the other one. I'm going with the older Busch. I'm going with Kurt. He's going to finally go get a win. He's been having a lot of struggles going and getting wins for a while, so I think he'll get it done this weekend.
All right, so both Busch brothers are taken off the table. Hal Eastep is picking Kurt Busch. For my pick, I think, I mean, you know something? I'm going to go with a driver who, how should I say this? They've come close to winning at Bristol before.
Oh, I know
In
where
fact,
you're going with
If
this.
you remember the Cinderella story from last fall, Justin, you should remember this quite well. You and I were watching this event on either my phone or your phone.
My phone.
Your phone after a KCOU barbecue. It's a more social event at the start of the school year. I've got a feeling that this guy is just right on the verge of breaking through. He's had some flashes of brilliance. He had a second-place finish at Las Vegas earlier this year. And if you don't know where I'm going with this, I mean, I'm making it quite clear. I think we get a first-time winner on Sunday. And I think it's going to be Matt DiBenedetto finally breaking through and winning his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. I mean, he finished second for Levine Family Racing in this race last year. Statistically, Bristol is one of his best tracks. And if history repeats itself, if you remember back to 2001 in the spring race, Elliott Sadler won his first career Cup race driving for the Wood Brothers. I feel like the Wood Brothers can go back to victory lane, and I think Matt DiBenedetto is the guy who can get it done. So there are your
Ford,
picks.
Chevy, and Toyota.
Yep.
We're going on the polar opposites on this one.
So both Busch brothers, Kyle picked by Justin, Hal picks Kurt, and I am going with an outsider's pick in Matt DiBenedetto for Sunday's Food City presents the Supermarket Heroes 500. So with those Cup race picks out the way, we also have an Xfinity race that's going to be happening on Monday, June the 1st. Now, this race was supposed to happen tomorrow. However, because the Cup race on Thursday was delayed, it was postponed by rain, they decided to move the Xfinity race to Monday at Bristol Motor Speedway, and the starting lineup has already been set, and let's have a look at that right now. I will tell you that it is a JGR front row with Harrison Burton and Brandon Jones sharing the front row. Austin Cindric is the highest starting Ford. Then you get 3 Chevys with Justin Haley, Ryan Sieg, and Ross Chastain. I'm looking to see if there are any Cup regulars whatsoever. Oh, you get AJ Allmendinger. Allmendinger is starting 27th. I know he's not a Cup regular, but I mean he's still there. He's driving the 16 car, that third entry for Colleague Racing on Monday. So again, we'll start with Justin. Who wins the Cheddar's 300 at Bristol?
See, this is a race I swear Kyle Busch would be running. And I swear Kyle Busch would be running this race, and he is not. And I am very disappointed in that because that would have been an easy pick at Bristol. However, since he is not running this race, I gotta choose someone else. And I think this driver, we talked about him earlier in the show, has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and is ready to prove people wrong, and that he is still gaining in development and win on the Rovals. Not on the Rovals, the ovals. No, excuse me. Give me Austin Cindric. Building off the momentum of last week, he will get his first oval victory at the world's greatest Coliseum.
All right. Justin Farmer picking Austin Cindric for the Cheddar's 300. Hal Eastep, your pick for Monday's Xfinity race.
Now, my pick may not really have a chip on his shoulder as much as it is a watermelon on his shoulders, you know? I think that Ross Chastain has something to prove after everything that happened in the Cup Series. Some disappointing runs for a guy who really wanted to go out and show everybody he can compete in a Roush car and show that he belongs in the 42 next year. He wants to show that development now, show that he's ready to compete for a championship now. Go win at Bristol, punch your ticket to the playoffs, and go prove everybody wrong for the rest of the year.
All right. So Hal is picking Ross Chastain to win the Xfinity race on Monday. So for my pick, I feel like I'm stuck in a pickle because I could go for someone who I think Bristol could really suit their driving style. Like, I don't know. I feel like Noah Gragson could do pretty well. But at the same time, I'm just not sure. I don't think I'm actually going to pick Noah Gragson. And in fact, guys, let me ask you this question, fellas. Am I really crazy enough to pick 2 first-time winners in one weekend? Am I really crazy enough to do that? Now, generally, I wouldn't think that I am, but I mean, who knows what can happen? I mean, I feel like, okay, this last race that they did was an off week for them. They finished 28th. So, I mean, they were kind of anonymous. However, they've had some really good runs this season that that I feel like some people haven't really noticed that much, or at least they haven't noticed it very well. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really feeling an outsider pick, and I'm just gonna go wild because it's Bristol. Why not? Let's just pick this guy. I'm gonna do it. I'm full on in it. Give me Ryan Sieg in the 39.
Oh.
Yes, I'm going bold on this. I mean, Ryan Sieg, he's starting 5th. I feel like, I mean, he's shown he's got some speed. He got a top 5 in Vegas, driving his own family-owned car. And there's really no cup regulars in this race. I feel like he's got some brilliance in there. There's some talent that Ryan Sieg has. I feel like if everything falls his way, Ryan Sieg is going to win Bristol. Call me crazy, and I probably am. But, hey, I feel like this, I mean, it's possible. It can happen. We've seen strange things happen. I mean, we're in a pandemic this year, so why not? Let's just go crazy. Ryan Sieg is my pick to win Monday for the Cheddar's 300 for the Xfinity Series at Bristol. Again, our picks one more time. Justin Palmer has picked Austin Cindric. Hal Estep is going with Ross Chastain, and I am going really out there and probably reaching with Ryan Sieg.
I mean, I reached for Eric Jones last week, so reach for the stars, Sterling.
Yep. So that's our picks for the Bristol weekend. Those are the only 2 races that are happening over the next week. There will be more races happening the week after, and we'll have a lot to talk about there. But after those picks, that's basically all we've got. Hal, Justin, is there any last words before we call it a night?
May we have another great week of racing.
Amen.
Amen. And nothing else to say. Hey, let's just go racing at Bristol, baby.
Bristol. There aren't going to be fans there, so that's a little sad. However, given the current state that this country's in, and with everything going on, and with the pandemic unfolding, it'll just be nice to see some racing action at Bristol.
It'll be like an average Bristol spring race. Ace.
Oh, stop.
Just with
No. You had to bring it there.
I'm sorry. It's not, I mean, to be fair, it's not as bad as Texas. It's not as bad as Texas.
Yeah, it's true. Or Indy, for that matter. But okay, enough throwing shade.
Enough trash talking.
Totally not. Let's quit while we're ahead. So that is going to do it for this edition of Burnin Rubber, the socially distanced edition. This episode will go out on YouTube, Anchor, and Spotify. Hopefully tonight. If not tonight, maybe tomorrow. That is the goal for this. So on behalf of my co-hosts Hal Estep and Justin Palmer, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and please be kind to one another. Understand each other, especially in these trying times. Until next time, I am Sterling Siemens, signing off.